All right. Our next session of the day is who regulates pipelines in the Salt Lake Valley, and are those regulations adequate? Boy, that's a loaded question. They're probably going to leave that adequate thing for me to try to answer. You know? First up today is Tom Finch, who is a member of the Community Assistance and Technical Services for PHMSA, CATS in short, the CATS people. They are really a real resource to local governments and communities if you have questions about pipelines running through there. He's been with the Western Region since August 20th, 2009. He's been with PHMSA since 1999, and he attended the Colorado School of Mines, majoring in petroleum engineering. So we're going to let Tom start us off.
Thank you, Carl. I'm glad I left the years that I went to school off of there, because I was going to make a note to self that you can tell by looking at me. I don't know, it looks like everybody's kind of dragging, so I know Chris has heard this story, but I've got to tell one on one of my relatives on public awareness. We've been doing a lot of this stuff. We're sitting eating a hamburger, my wife and my daughter, and I mentioned that JD, he's a Utilities Notification Center, Colorado, Manacusco, kind of like Hanson is here for Blue Stakes, that he got an award at a CGA conference. And my daughter watches a lot of murder mysteries with my wife. I don't know, I'm starting to wonder what's going on there. But at any rate, we were talking about 811, and she looks at us seriously and she goes, "So Dad, if you're going to bury a body, you should call 811. And you look at your wife and she looks at you, and we thought she wasn't serious, but she was serious. And I guess we had to turn around and explain to her that that's fine if you, we really, she says, yeah, there can be stuff out in the middle of nowhere and everything. I said, maybe this is the one time you wouldn't want to call 811, because if you're going to do that, you got 48-hour notice, you got premeditated murder worked right up there, and they'll just turn around and they'll call 911 for you. So, just thought I'd try and wake you guys up a little bit. I know poor Chris has heard that a couple times, but it's a true story. I can't make it up. Okay. Is this thing? There we go. It's a pretty simple answer, I think, on who regulates pipelines in the Salt Lake Valley. I must have known you were going to cut the bottom off because I made these short. But U.S. DOT PHMSA, Western Region, DOT PHMSA, but goes through the regional director. We have support from Washington, D.C. on enforcement cases and stuff. It's all standardized back with our enforcement division. And then, of course, the other agency is the Division of Public Utilities, Utah Department of Commerce. So those are the two on the pipelines. The hazardous liquid pipelines are regulated by us, DOT, PHMSA, and those are pipelines that cross state lines. I guess the best way to put it, hazardous liquid interstate lines, and then you have hazardous liquid intrastate that are pipelines that are within the boundaries of one state, which such in this case is Utah. And the only gas we regulate in Utah is interstate gas transmission pipelines, and that's of course the ones that cross state lines. And there's a caveat there: if you have a line that's FERC, got a Federal Energy Regulatory certificate, then if it's FERC, then it's interstate because it's a federal certification. So now, I can let Chris speak for his part, but the Division of Public Utilities, Utah Department of Commerce, regulates intrastate gas transmission pipelines. And these are gas pipelines that are within the boundaries of one state, which is Utah. Municipal gas distribution systems. You do have some municipalities, I believe, down in southeastern Utah that aren't supplied by Quastar. And here's another caveat that gas, a lot of people think of the gas as natural gas, but you also have hydrogen as a regulated commodity. And I've been with Al Zadeh when he's gone out and inspected the hydrogen lines out by the refinery. So there's another gas line that you get to think about. So here's just kind of a setup of Utah. Is basically just the way we mentioned in the western region that's already been pointed out to y'all. Washington State, especially right after Bellingham, became an interstate agent. They are our agent for natural gas and hazardous liquids, inter and intrastate. So they report through our regional director, Chris Hoydell, who you met this morning, and on interstate items, and we do the enforcement, but they do all the inspecting, just like they're one of our inspectors. And then California, the fire marshal on the hazardous liquids, they do intra and interstate hazardous liquids. And then you've got the California PUC that does just the public utilities. There's different states have different caveats. Now, they don't get quite as much grant funding. We actually end up doing quite a bit of stuff in California because they only do the public utilities. And, of course, they do a lot of master meter operators. But we get all the inter and intrastate natural gas lines. So our 3 inspectors in Ontario, California, get to handle a bulk of the load on natural gas. Arizona, I got to tell another one on Chris. He came back from a meeting when they were reorganizing, and I was a state liaison at that time. He was giving me the story about how the regions were being reorganized. And I could just see it coming because they moved Arkansas to the southwest region. They were moving a few states around. And then he goes to me, and we get Arizona. We didn't get to get rid of anybody, did we? We get Arizona. So, and at the time, I was a state liaison, and it meant a lot of work for Chris and myself is what it amounted to. But that's pretty much how it's laid out. The pipeline safety regulations, the rules, as you all know, are included in Title 49, Parts 190 through 199, and individual states may have additional or more stringent pipeline safety regulations. So there's a few states that do, Washington State, Arizona, and they're allowed to, as long as they don't deviate away from our intent, and they can be a little more detailed and stringent. An overview of pipeline safety regulations. This is just stuff that's been covered before, but wanted to let you know what we have in there since basically, as Carl mentioned, 1999 when we had Bellingham. Construction and design we've always had. Integrity management came about as a part of, after Bellingham had happened, and especially Carlsbad then came on the gas. Operator qualifications was about the same way. Public awareness rule came out shortly thereafter, 2003, and control room management more recently. So under pipeline design and construction, basically you can see everything. I'm not going to insult your intelligence and read it, but you got to just go quickly. Trenching, welding, kind of in order, coating, lowering and backfilling, depth of cover, testing, valve locations, leak detection systems. So that's your pipeline design and construction. The integrity management, you guys have been all over that this morning, is basically, I mean, this is the quick explanation for IMP, integrity management programs, is assessment of pipeline integrity in high consequence areas. It is the integration of risk and knowledge, and actually integration of data a lot. You know, there's a thing that's not thrown in there. A lot of operators have a lot of data and information available to them, but if they don't integrate it, they have some problems. I mean, we've seen where if they'd integrated that information a little better, they probably would have found their problem. Allocate resources to focus on the highest risks. We've talked about that. Operators developing their own performance measures and performance monitoring programs that are, they develop those, but we audit those all the time. I don't know how many integrity management inspections we've got scheduled this year, but there's quite a few. We have a person that specializes on the hazardous liquid side, and we have another one on the gas side for integrity management inspections that are pretty intensive. They'll take at least a couple weeks with an operator. Written integrity management programs, this is kind of the key, or a living document, and they drive continuous improvement. So, if your program, isn't improving, you're not looking hard enough, basically. Operator qualification, a lot of people can tell you about the questions about the operations at Bellingham, were they qualified skate operators, et cetera, et cetera. There's other items that came about, but pipeline came about in 2002. Pipeline employees, well, actually 2000, but pipeline employees and contractors must be qualified to perform covered tasks. Personnel must be trained and evaluated to ensure that they are safe and proper performance, do a safe and proper performance of a covered task. But one of the things that was missing and really had to be pushed on them was recognize and react to abnormal operating conditions. They just weren't quite getting that part. I think they're getting a lot better now, but it's taken about 8 years or so. So the consensus standard is in ASME standard B31Q, which is also a living document. They're always working on that. Here's what I've had my eye on as a CATS person for the last 2 years is public awareness programs. In June of 2005, regulations were revised to require all operators to comply with API recommended practice 1162. Communications plans were tailored to the stakeholder audience. That's the way they were supposed to be. For residents, you have 4 general groups: residents along the right-of-way, which we call affected public, general public, local public officials, and emergency responders. You also have something that's really not listed there is excavators definitely have to be in there. Operators must evaluate the effectiveness of the public awareness programs, and their program effective evaluations are scheduled to be inspected, all of them that are under our jurisdiction, by the end of this year. So this is my 4th week of travel. I spent a week doing that last week and first couple days this week doing it. So we're getting there. Control room management's one of the newer ones, and the objectives are to help ensure the controllers will continue. We feel they've been fairly successful after Bellingham, but controllers will continue to be successful in maintaining pipeline safety and integrity, verify that the procedures, systems, and equipment are well thought out and function as designed, and assure pipeline operators are addressing fatigue and risks in the control room. That's a big factor with anything. And since I was only supposed to take about 15 minutes, I think I've done about my 15 minutes. Maybe I broke the rule by being on time. I don't know if I was on time. But if you have any questions, later, contact us. Thank you.